Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.
Hello, my friends. It is Wednesday, the 1st of October, 2025, which of course means it is time for episode 68 of Mullinger's Weekly Ramble, and I'm delighted to say that this week's episode is brought to you by Pascan Aviation. That's right. If you're heading out of my beloved St. John Airport, Pascan Aviation has you covered with flights to Halifax, Montreal, and Quebec City. I know! Friendly service Monday to Friday, and one free checked bag. That's right. Finally, a bag that doesn't cost more than your plane ticket. Promo fares available now at pascan.com. So, how have you all been? I sincerely hope you've had a wonderful week. I know the world is not in a good place, but I hope in your household, in your universe, in your home, I hope that you have found joy. I've had, as ever, quite a busy week. Only 2 gigs though. Both, both big-ish. Not well. Every gig's stressful. Let's be honest. But I've watched lots. I've done lots. I've been to the cinema twice, if you can believe that. I went to see One Battle After Another on Sunday. More on that later. I went to see The Long Walk last night, which is quite incredibly, seemingly the best reviewed Stephen King film adaptation ever. There's been more than 100, if you can believe that. Can you imagine writing so many books that there's been more than 100 TV shows? Speaking of books, I think I mentioned this before. Have become very good friends with Leslie Choice, who's one of the, I would say, Atlantic Canada's most prolific writers and has mentored dozens, if not hundreds, of writers. He famously, I went to visit him at his house in Lawrencetown a few weeks ago and was blown away. Look, his office is just majestic. It's how you would want every amazing author's office to look. He's also the owner and runs a Pottersfield Press. But his book is just, piled high with books. It's just a haven of creativity. I know some of you have seen it inside my loft. My loft is the haven of a madman. In that, obviously I'm surrounded with VHS videos, Care Bears. I'm currently looking at some Care Bears above my desk that lovely Heidi White gave me. I'm looking at a painting by my friend Lily McNulty of me as a cat. I'm looking at 2 paintings by the wonderful Mia Bruce, who very kindly came to my Fredericton Playhouse show on Friday night, which we will get to in a moment. Okay, 6 tangents already. Great start. My point is that Leslie Choice has written over 100 books, and I remember going to his house thinking, wow, the happiest I've ever been was when I finished and published my first book, first solo book, It Happens. The happiest I was probably last year was when I got the offer for my second book, which incidentally, I don't want to jinx it, but is the contract... I don't want to jinx it. Am I jinxing it? Oh, the contract's probably going to be signed this week. So my point is that the happiest I ever got, probably, other than obviously birth of children, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, imagine, so the man that's written more than 100 books must be the happiest man in the world. That's my theory. Anyway, I'm writing something about that now. How did I get onto this? What's my point? Stephen King has written so many books. It's kind of interesting. If you read a Stephen King book recently, there isn't a great deal of editing going on, is there? I guess when you reach that kind of level of power where Stephen King hands in his latest 5,000-page tome, Doorstopper, and they're not going, could use a little tight edit, Stevie baby. It's a little on the long side. Oi, oi, that's what she said. I'm actually currently rereading I'm rereading both Anne of Green Gables and looking for Anne of Green Gables. But Anne of Green Gables is obviously the original classic by L.M. Montgomery, which has transformed. Obviously the island of the PEI would be the island. You can't say the island of the Prince Edward Island. The island of Prince Edward, PEI. It transformed it. Obviously, it would always be a tourism haven. But going there, as I did last summer, and seeing the tens of thousands of people flocking there because they love this beautiful creation, it makes you, I've talked about this before, my desire for someone to create the New Brunswick art, character or creation, basically, and I do have a plan for it, by the way, it's all written up. I just need to make it happen. A plan to create New Brunswick's Come From Away and New Brunswick's Anne of Green Gables, i.e. the cultural thing that attracts people. What is, and PEI, of course, is now doing it a second time with Telltale Harbour. What is Nova Scotia's thing? I know, obviously, it's Peggy's Cove. That's the thing that people travel from all over the world for. But what is their artistic character? What is their cultural character that people travel for? I guess they've latched onto the Titanic, haven't they? Which anyway. So I'll just rush through my week, shall I? And then we'll get to things. But very quickly, I guess. Massive thank you to me and Bruce for bringing me this beautiful painting to my Fredericton Playhouse show last week. It is a painting I'm looking at right now. Last year, she came with her dad to the show and brought me a wonderful drawing of myself. This year's tour date is interesting. I think I mentioned this last week. I do my Fredericton Playhouse tour dates pretty much on the same Friday every year. Last week, as I spent the entire week fretting, panicking, worrying, preparing, writing, rewriting, writing new jokes, road testing jokes for the big show on Friday, I swore I would take a year off because I've done it every year. I played the Playhouse in 2019. Obviously, 2020 didn't happen. I made up for it by doing 2, maybe even 4 in 2021 when we could, like distance shows. Then in 2022, 23, 24, 25. So having a brand new, what used to be 90-minute show every year is a challenge. And then, of course, I'm always aware of the fact that, wow, there's lots of people coming that haven't seen me before. So as ever, it's that age-old debate of how does one write a show that appeals to people that have seen you a dozen times and people that have never seen you before. Miraculously, incredibly, gratefully, somehow on Friday, it seemed to happen. And every year I fret about it and stress about it. And then it happens, and the feedback has been absolutely kind of overwhelmingly nice, which of course then leads me to then think, oh, of course I could do another one next year. But equally, I think maybe I leave it 2 years and wait for the big new Performing Arts Centre to open that is opening around the corner on, is it King Street, where FYI Doctors used to be, opposite the dodgy Tim Hortons. Anyway, thank you, Mia, I could see her in the second or third row during the show, clutching a frame, brought her on stage, and it's a beautiful painting of a maple leaf and a lobster. If you want to see it, I will be posting pictures of it on my Facebook wall. Incidentally, thank you to everyone who came, because it was legitimately one of the most enjoyable shows I've had in a long time. I can't tell you the satisfaction. I think last week I was saying about how I was desperately, frantically workshopping to try and get the show to be... Bill Burr, and again, I'm not going to be holding up Bill Burr as a bastion of goodness due to his participation in the Riyadh Comedy Festival. More on that later, that controversy later, where some of our favourite comedians have sold their souls to the most oppressive regime on earth, the Saudi royal family. We will get to that later. The amount of, again, I've mentioned this before, but I literally never get over the excitement and thrill and the generosity of people. 700 people plus coming out to see me. Just so grateful. And then after the show, the joy of this job. Okay, so here are the things that the kind members of the wonderful Fredericton community brought me. So Mia brings me a beautiful painting that she has done, which will live above my desk. An absolutely beautiful couple, Ross and Fiona Waters. They are from Scotland. They are also the pastors at the Brunswick Street Baptist Church. They came to the show last year. After the show, very kindly stood in line to have a chat at the merch table. Asked me what is the one thing I miss about England or the UK, and I said, as many of you know, KP peanuts. Would you believe they stand in line for half an hour, long time, get to the front, and Fiona, Ross says, last year we asked you what you miss, you told us KP nuts. Fee opens her purse, and inside Fee's purse is a bag of salted peanuts. I mean, tell me that isn't the most kind. What is it about New Brunswick that attracts the nicest people in the world to move here and settle here? A massive thank you to the Noftel family, Lachelle and Meg. They brought me a box of again, must have known that my wife, Pam, is celiac, a box of gluten-free cupcakes, which truly, when I got back on Friday night, drove back that night from the show, knew I had an early start driving the kids around on Saturday, so, wasn't going to, basically my idea of post-show partying is eating a gluten-free cupcake. I can't tell you how much pleasure those cupcakes brought us all over the weekend. Where were they from? Did you make them, Lachelle? Are they from Amazing Chess Piece? Let me know. David and Cheryl Wheatsall, massive thanks to you for leaving an envelope. Whenever you leave me, whenever there's a nice envelope left, I know it's going to be something special from you guys. They very kindly left me 2 old Zellers flyers, authentic original Zellers flyers, and also a flyer from a shop that I haven't heard. I will post pictures of these Zellers flyers too. What's the other thing called? God bless you, my friends. Very much appreciated. And that's right. Byway, always Byway. Is that something else? Another shop? Absolutely made my day. I guess another thank you should go out to my friend Greg Parker, who moved from the UK 9 years ago. I always tap him up for intel about Fredericton. He told me all this information that I needed to know, such as the fact that for the second time in 1 week, pardon me, I need to cough. Do you mind if I just quickly move away from the mic? Thank you. Wonderful. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, by the way. It's now 7. I've got wake up the kids very shortly. Greg gave me all the intel I needed to know about trucks getting stuck under the Bill Thorpe walking bridge. I managed to write up about 15 new jokes last week about that. Only remembered some of them. It's funny, when I came off stage. So my point. Sorry, I started to say this. Yes, that Bill Burr says the optimal time for the main comedian, not the main comedian, but I guess the comedian whose name's on the ticket, is 1 hour and 10 minutes. I believe Nate Bargatze is doing something between 1 hour and basically between 60 and 70 minutes. So he has a couple of openers. Bill does the same thing, a couple of openers, and then does 1 hour and 10. Weirdly, in England, I was reading, there's an expectation in England, I think, for when you go to a theatre for the comedians to do kind of 2 hours, which to me just seems ridiculous. I agree with these American comedians that, and obviously with Nate Bargatze doing 1 hour and 10, the slowness at which he speaks and those brilliant pauses that are so perfectly timed. If he was talking at the ridiculous speed I am, that would be like a 10-minute set. I really should slow down. Anyway, what am I getting at? So I'm on stage on Friday night at the Playhouse. I've got 65% material that I've written this year that has not been performed in that room before in any capacity, and then I've got 35% that is reworked versions of older bits that I haven't done there for many years, reworked, updated, that I figured, okay, these will land big, and anyone that's heard them before probably won't remember them or won't recognize them in their new form. So I'm up there doing this set ostensibly in its current form for the first time. Yes, I workshopped it on Wednesday night at the Kingston Farmers Market, which, by the way, was such a blast. Brad Rice and Corey Hartlin, who both did barnstorming jobs opening for me at the Playhouse, kindly drove up to Farmers Market so we could basically just practice our Friday show. And massive hats off and thanks to Shelley Key and Lorraine and everyone at the Kingston Farmers Market for making that such a special night. It was every bit as majestic as I hoped it would be. Freeman Patterson has been suggesting and pushing through Shelley that I do a show at the Farmers Market for about 10 years. Now, as you all know from listening to this podcast regularly, it takes quite... I am aware of the importance of every single show being a perfect experience for every single person in a room. So I guess for all intents and purposes, it is quite hard to I struggle with how do I put this? It's not easy to get me to try a new venue that isn't a performing arts venue. So, for example, the lovely people at Long Bay asked me for a long time. Lovely people at Hampton Brewing Company asked me for a long time. Kingston, they asked me for a long time to do shows, and every time I'm kind of like, oh, will it work? Will it work? Will it work? Can it work? Is the light going to be right? Is the sound going to be right? Is the atmosphere going to be right? Of course, with theatres and clubs, different thing, but with rooms that aren't built for performing arts, I'm often I hold back until I know it's going to be right, because I want every single person to have a great experience. Now, Shelley pulled out all the stops, did everything she said she was going to do. And the other thing is, sometimes also when you're doing an event with people whose primary job isn't selling tickets for an event, there's often that challenge. Anyway, Shelley, hats off, absolutely not only delivered on everything that she said she would do, but went way above and beyond. The room was decorated beautifully. It was essentially what I described as, like my favorite type of gig. Like in Calby a few weeks ago, like a village hall. The atmosphere in there was delightful. So thank you to Shelley and everyone that came to the Kingston Farmers Market. And am I right in thinking Susan White? I don't know if you listen to this podcast. Susan White is, of course, an amazing New Brunswick author who I'm a huge fan of, and B, she is also the owner of the 50 chickens that were stolen from my joke about the newspapers when their headline said "Crime Wave in St. John, 50 chickens stolen." Susan, I bought a copy of your new book with me that night in case I saw you, and then I saw you post online that the show was great, so I missed you. So anyway, let's try and get together so you can sign your new book, which by the way I'm very much enjoying. But here's the point I'm trying to get to. My goodness, it's taken me 10 minutes to try and get to this. This is the nitty gritty of it. The point is, I had it in my head, and I said it last week, and you heard me say it, that the optimal length of time for stand-up set is 70 minutes. So I'm on stage, having fun in Fredericton, but of course constantly always thinking about what's the next joke and what's the next thing, and like, my goodness, I'm going into the EV car bit. I'm still not convinced it's highly ready. I did write lots of new endings for it, but ultimately went for the one that I've been doing that has a swear word in it, which I would prefer it to not have. Anyway, it all went well. I forgot a couple of crucial parts of the show. I got lost once and then had to kind of come back to something. But the long and short of it is this: having no idea where I was at, no time on stage, literally no concept of time, I come off. I afterwards look at the footage. I did exactly an hour and 10 minutes. Is that not the weirdest thing about how you can mentally... again, of course, you're not up there. It's not like you're up there counting. And even if you were counting, you probably wouldn't get it right. And I'm not counting like the seconds or anything like that. I aimed for an hour and 10. I did exactly an hour and 10. And of course, all the bits that I forgot, I was very mad at myself that I forgot. But then equally, on the plus side, that's material which I could potentially do if I end up doing it next year, which is, having had this much fun. And as my wife said, I often get a crash after a big show, or often if something doesn't go right with a show, I kind of end up beating myself up after a big one. And yeah, I haven't had that this time. I've had nothing but positivity, thanks to basically everyone at the theatre, and indeed everyone that came. So thank you all very much. What did I do the following day? Went to the dentist. That's fun, isn't it? Went to the dentist. I do love going to see the hygienist. I don't know about you. Maybe it's because I've got crooked teeth, but I like going and getting the freshen up. You know, when people describe how a colonic irrigation makes you feel like a new person, like, which I've done it. It didn't. But you know, people go, oh, it's colonic, and you go, what? That's when they stick the tube up your bum. And yeah, but it doesn't feel like that. And then you feel really cleansed after. Blah blah. I did it once at an Austrian like health resort. No, not rehab. It was called Viva Maya. I was sent there by GQ, and basically did a kind of a cleanse, fast, blah blah blah. You know, it was good. I mean, I somewhat needed it at the time. I was definitely, not living my healthiest life, but anyone that tells you that a colonic irrigation doesn't feel like a massive tube being shoved up your ass, I'm here to say it does feel like a massive tube being shoved up your ass. Not to say that, I mean, again, I wouldn't do it. How did I get onto this? My point is that what people describe a colonic being like is how I feel going to the hygienist is like. I just come away feeling cleansed. And wonderful. And then that night we actually went to Moncton to celebrate the 50th anniversary of an incredible architecture firm. The event was taking place at Hyatt Place, which is one of the properties, I guess, developments that they have been behind. But before we go any further, I'm very quickly going to tell you a little bit more about my friends at Pascan Aviation. So here's a little travel tip for all of my fellow Maritimers. If you've been missing quick, convenient flights from St. John Airport, you're going to want to hear this. Pascan Aviation is back, reconnecting the region with friendly personal service from St. John Airport to Halifax, Montreal, and Quebec City. That's right! Monday to Friday, you can hop on a Pascan flight and be in Halifax in no time, or head straight to Montreal's YHU Airport, which gets you faster to downtown than Trudeau. And here's the thing. Every passenger gets one free checked bag up to £50 because nobody wants to pay extra just for their luggage. Even better, thanks to their partnership with Porter, you can book seamless travel on flyporter.com through Halifax and soon, early 2026, through Montreal's brand new Porter terminal. Exciting times, my friends, I think you can agree. Now is the perfect time to plan ahead. Pascan has great promo prices for Thanksgiving, Halloween and the holiday season, so don't wait. Visit pascan.com and book early for the best deals. Trust me, your next getaway is just a flight away. Where was I? Yes, Architects 4. It was truly an incredible celebration of 5 decades of one of the most admired and lauded architecture firms in the region. Many of their projects I'm obviously very familiar with, as you would be, such as the incredible University of PEI, the Georges L. Dumont University Hospital Centre, Hyatt Place, as I mentioned, which is where the launch took place. But there were some developments of theirs that I actually wasn't even aware of. Well, actually, one I'd heard of, which is in Fundy National Park, the incredible Chignecto South Pavilion, which is a beautiful spot and one of those venues, built for community hospitality in the Fundy National Park. And actually, I couldn't help thinking, great venue for a gig. Speaking of which, great venues for gigs. One venue that blew me away, which I guess isn't necessarily a public space, but just jumped off the pages, actually. I should point out, crucially, they have created a beautiful book celebrating 50 years of Architects 4 and many of the original partners. There was a film, actually, that they showed that highlighted and celebrated many of the original partners and, of course, the amazing present partners. Anyway, if I come across the film online, I will share it. I mean, the Architects 4 website is architects4.ca, and if you do get a chance to get your hands on this book, please do so. Absolutely stunning. But check out on their website the Cidery, which is a venue they have built, which again jumps off the screen, page, web, whatever you want to call it. Immediately, Pam, my wife, and I were like, "Wow, there is a space." I believe it's not public. I believe it's for weddings and so forth, but maybe it is going to become a space. Anyway, check it out. And thank you so much to Crystal Richard, who invited us to this event. Crystal, many of you will know as East Coast Mermaid. She is a highly loved is the correct word. Writer, influencer, blogger. Her website is eastcoastmermaid.com. And you can also follow her, obviously, on social, East Coast Mermaid, but she's also a hugely respected PR publicist, which is what she was, which is the capacity in which she was involved in this. Her website is crystalrichard.com. It was so nice to turn up and the event just be so beautiful and just so majestically put together, and then realize that it was Elm City Events who had been hired to handle this. I've been working closely with Carolina at Elm City Events, actually on, this might be our third. We did a corporate together last year, and then at the New Brunswick Real Estate Association, I did the keynote in April. Carolina was behind it. She's originally from Brazil, and now makes New Brunswick home. Truly one of the absolute best at what she does. Just one of those. There's a few people like that when I'm booked to do a corporate gig and I see that, she's involved, I'm like, this is going to be a joy. Every detail is going to be taken care of. I'm going to be given all the tools I need to get on that stage and rip the roof off. That, you know, it's just Carolina is just that kind of that seal of quality. And I'm actually doing another gig for with Carolina and Elm City events in a couple of weeks, which I will tell you more about. Which is actually a very exciting one. I'll tell you more about that in a few weeks. Anyway, moving on. We've got lots to get to, by the way, and stick with me. I know I'm rambling, but that's what you sign up for. We've got all kinds of things coming up. We've got comedians being beheaded in Saudi Arabia. We've got the former French president being sent to jail for 5 years. Kimmel updates, moose hunting. What else is coming up? The Pit, the TV show. We have kayaking. Yes, that's right. We got Stephen King. We've got people leaving their jobs. We've got Fords. We've got Audis. We've got airports. We've got Lewis Capaldi. We've got so much coming up. So this is like one of those radio stations. Stay with us, or one of those morning. Do you have in England? They have these morning TV shows like This Morning with Richard and Judy. But now, then it was with Philip Schofield. But then he did a load of. Did he do anything problematic? Well, him and Holly either possibly jumped the queue for the Queen's funeral and then he blew a intern or something. Not on the same day. Could have been. Did he do it? Did he blow an intern at the Queen's? I don't know. Is he friends with Prince Andrew? Who knows? Did I talk about this last week? The geniuses that projected the image of. Oh my goodness! Have you heard about Sarah Ferguson? Poor old Fergie. Prince Andrew's ex-wife has been. Basically dropped left, right, and centre for fawning letters that she wrote to Epstein post revelations of post knowledge of him being a wrong 'un. And she's been dropped by all these charities and so forth. And of course, Sarah Ferguson, she's kind of spent her whole life essentially kind of freeloading. I mean, I do feel sorry. Does it feel unfair that this? Yet again, a woman is paying for the crimes of a man. Prince Andrew's still lauding it up, standing at the Prince Charles. And again, I realise that there's a lot of listeners who are monarchists, royalists. And again, I'm all about respecting everybody's opinions. Can we agree that the royal family rolling out the king putting on his gold crown and his big gold cape, and then them posting the pictures of the place settings, and I saw that it said the king, I'm the king, and then inviting Donald Trump in to roll out the red carpet for a man who is let's just say doing a lot of things that I think most moral and decent people would disagree with. Interesting watching the movie One Battle After Another on Sunday, which is obviously based on a novel from the 70s, but of course, like a lot of things that were kind of written in the 70s, like The Long Walk, Stephen King book, all these parallels from the 70s, from the Cuban Missile Crisis or from Vietnam, and then parallels with today. And these kind of horrible detention centers where people are being separated from their families, and seeing it's just so sad, isn't it? And awful to see monsters do monstrous things, and then other countries rolling out the red carpet for them. And anyway, so the point, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot to come. But so I'm going to quickly whiz through a couple of highlights of the last week, and then we will get to the nitty gritty. We've also had some incredible letters from wonderful people, Daphne, Stephen, Jessica. By the way, Sammy. I should say a very big shout out to my dear friend Heidi White. In classic, last week I shared my fun small airport story. Heidi White, I did not know. I've known Heidi for years. Her beautiful girlfriend, Catherine, girlfriend. I don't know, but they should be married. They seem married. Perfect couple. But again, not putting pressure on anyone, not putting pressure on anyone to propose. But the time could be now. God bless you, Heidi. Love you so much. Heidi, I did not know her for years. Did not know worked for UPS, and I had a package that was coming from England. It was a big box of VHS videos and some Panini stickers from my parents. It was old comedy videos, old rare Warner Brothers big box Clint Eastwood movies, but crucially a big I'm obsessed with old school. I talked about this last week. Old school British comedy. So it was a pile of old videos like Punt and Dennis, Jimmy Jones, Roy Chubby Brown, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it was having some customs delays. Heidi, being an absolute saint, gets in touch to inform me of these customs delays. This is the thing that is amazing about. And then her wonderful colleague, anyway, came to the door and it was all resolved. Isn't it nice though? You can just local communities. There's normally if you were trying to settle an issue with a huge global shipping organization, it would be. But no, when you live in the Maritimes, everything can be resolved quickly and easily by friend relations. So Thursday night before the big show, as I say, I basically spent all week essentially fretting. You could call it fretting. You could call it preparing for the Playhouse show. So the Kingston Farmers Market gig, as I say, went very well. There was things that did go well, things that didn't go well, things I could have done better. I realised that most of the audience, I think, probably had never seen me before, so I could have kind of done a greatest hits, so to speak, i.e., but I desperately needed to run in the new material. But of course, it means that I can do the Kingston Farmers Market again in a few months. And I did mention Susan White. If you see me around, I've got your book, The Right to Retreat. Please do. Oh, that's right. I got distracted earlier. There's a few tangents I haven't come back to. The reason I'm reading Anne of Green Gables again wasn't just because we're running an extract in the next issue of the magazine from the book. Looking for Anne of Green Gables by Irene Gamble. It's published by the wonderful people at Sutherland House. In it, you're probably wondering how many more books can we have about Lucy Maud Montgomery, blah, 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 blah. By the way, if you haven't seen Brandon Hicks's amazing comic strip of Lucy Maud's life that we ran in the Maritime Edit, let me know. I'll post it on the old Facebooks. Irene, quite staggeringly, uncovers the origins of basically the face of the actress in a magazine that Lucy Maud Montgomery chanced across that she was inspired to create Anne from. Like the descriptions of Anne and the cutting that she used in her mood board. Like it's amazing that one of those amazing things that's always happened through the ages and people are still doing now, and I'm still doing now, cutting out things to inspire you. So the point is, there's a huge revelation. So I'm trying to go through the book. I've read the book while we were on PEI over the summer, and now I'm rereading it, trying to pick the right extract to run in the next issue of the mag, which incidentally is a wellness issue, and we have everything from dance, First City of Dance. So basically everything from ballet to MMA, and by MMA I of course mean Fight League Atlantic, which is Atlantic Canada's UFC, which I've talked about in the past. Is not only put on incredible MMA events, but it's truly like a spectacle worthy of everyone here who spends any money on UFC should be spending money on Fight League Atlantic. Speaking of local, I will get back to the point in a sec. I finally yesterday went, I've been meaning to go for ages, to McLeod's Meat Locker on the Rosso Road. It's where you can see where I'm going. I mean, ingeniously, the old sign is out, which is very, very beautiful. It's where Colwell's used to be. And there's a bus stop opposite now, a new mobility bus stop. So if anyone has mobility issues, you can get there. I have one of their sausages right here, the breakfast sausage. It is right. I won't eat it now because you don't want to hear me chewing. But I've had a couple for breakfast. Jordan McLeod is basically legitimately a world-class butcher who has opened this gorgeous. I mean, they've got so many amazing local things. But the meat selection is just off the charts. Like I'm not an expert, but I have friends who are experts. Pete Hunter, Jeff Kitchen, who go there all the time and just say the steak, the meat is off the charts. So go and see Jordan McLeod. And I'm embarrassed that I hadn't been. It's been there for 6 months, 7 months, right down the road from me. And it's one of those awful examples of preaching local. Preaching support local, but I hadn't done it anyway. Now I have, and I will be going there all the time. Please, you don't even have to be local. It's worth making a trip for. Speaking of supporting local, what was I going to say? Oh yes, we are currently working. I'm actually heading off to the Wave shortly to record an ad for the Rosse Yule that is coming up in support of the St. John Regional Hospital Foundation's nurse program. And we are switching. I've always been selling my shows on Eventbrite, which unfortunately is an American company. There is a new ticketing service called Licarius that is based on PEI, which when I did a show at the Courthouse Theatre over the summer, they used Licario and Cavendish Music Festival use it. So we are switching all ticketing from Eventbrite to not only a Canadian company, but a Maritimes company. Again, constantly, we must all work at this. I actually have new T-shirts, which are to coincide with my next, my tour next year is called Canadian Comedian. As many of you know, the first show that is on sale right now is it's actually the taping of the show, which will take place at the Dalhousie Arts Centre, the Rebecca Cohen Auditorium at Dalhousie, 17th of April, sponsored by the beautiful people at Audi Halifax. I actually have been driving the Audi SQ5 for the last 2 weeks, driven it 4 provinces, a real kind of tank of a car, but doesn't feel too big, but you feel big in it. I did about 6 or 7 hours driving a day in it during the week before last, and still I was arriving at gigs like a few hours before and feeling rested and sprightly. I hadn't been sleeping while driving, but point being is I wasn't all stiff and uncomfortable. What's my point? Yes, but the show is called Canadian Comedian, but I've got T-shirt. Part of the whole mantra of the new show is how we can all not only be more Canadian, but teach the world to be more Canadian. Like when terrible things happen in England, which they are, and terrible things are happening, obviously, south. Just how we can all help the world to be more Canadian. Anyway, those Be More Canadian T-shirts on sale. Basically, so last week, sidetracked again. I'm going to whiz through the week, and then we're going to get to the letters and the fun. And my wife pointed out something that's interesting. Like how people always talk about how nice it is to be grandparents, like how you get to have all the fun, but without needing the discipline. And we noticed that our parents, a lot of people, you hear some people complain about like grandparents chiming in or offering advice. But interestingly, it would be interesting if you could someone would write a book because actually we're very lucky that my parents know, but they help, but they don't kind of offer, well, not they don't offer advice, but what they don't do is criticize. They don't criticize our parenting. They support what we do. Wouldn't it be interesting? Is there a book where grandparents teach parents what are the things they learned from? Because when you're in it, it's like you're making the mistakes when the child is 5 or the child is 10 or the child is 15, and then you're trying to reconcile things in your mind where you're like, oh, they don't want to hang out with us anymore. They want to be with their friends, and whether you feel sad about that, and whether you should feel sad and you should be happy that they have friends, or you should be happy that they're whatever it is. Would it be interesting to have it? You know how like sometimes you get the experience that someone has having brought up a child from 0, say, to 50. What's the number one lesson that has learned? I guess that's a good thing for listeners. If you're a grandparent, or indeed a parent of someone who is now 50 or over, what one piece of advice would you give to a parent of a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever it is? Or actually just what's your one takeaway? What's your takeaway thing that you wish you'd known when they were younger? There was a beautiful interview actually with Bob Odenkirk, of course, Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, with Mike Birbiglia. Mike Birbiglia says, "Who are you jealous of?" And so Bob Odenkirk says, "Anyone that has children still at home." And I just think, wouldn't it be interesting to get an insight from grandmas? Anyway, other interesting things I learned on the podcast last week. Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight on The Office, was on We Might Be Drunk, which is the Mark Normand and Sam Morril podcast. And interesting character. I mean, oddly quite like Dwight. There is a lot of Dwight, just like there's a lot of Brent in Gervais. There is a lot of, although I don't think there isn't much Michael Scott in Steve Carell, but there is a lot of Dwight in Rainn Wilson. Very interestingly honest person. He talks about problems with insecurities, imposter syndrome, drug and alcohol, and indeed porn addiction. And it was very interesting. It's interesting hearing Sam Morril and Mark Normand talking to him. Although I keep teasing this, I'm going to very shortly get to the whole Saudi Arabian Riyadh Comedy Festival thing, which both Mark Normand and Sam Morril are doing, which you can somewhat forgive. They are obviously hugely wealthy, but are still on the up. There are certain people doing it that you cannot forgive. Anyway, so whiz through. So got back from Moncton, watched The Lowdown on Disney Plus, which is the new Ethan Hawke Fargo-esque movie. Can we take yet another slightly oddball madcap thing where there's white supremacy and neo-Nazis, lots of shagging, lots of drugs, lots of violence? Yes, we can if it's done brilliantly, and The Lowdown so far is done absolutely brilliantly. Friday obviously was the big show. Playhouse did the show. Massive shout out to again openers, everyone there. Ainsley Coates, who took a Wild at Heart NB. Check out her work. Absolutely beautiful photographer, an artist. And again, I was just so happy to be Fredericton. Let's face it, it's a great place, and it has delivered me, I would say, some of my greatest. The Bill Thorpe Walking Bridge stuff, which is Bill Thorpe, by the way, after I did those jokes, a lot of people messaged me saying how great a person Bill Thorpe was and how much I would have loved him. So I wanted to mention that. It's where the Fredericton Railway Bridge used to be. I was closing with a bit where I wanted to kind of shout out all my favourite Fredericton things. And again, it's always tricky when you're doing something for the very first time in a big moment. Pardon me, sorry. I thought I could. I felt that burp coming. I thought it was gonna stay, and then it came out. I'm so sorry. I thought when you think you've got something in control and you don't. That was my kind of burp version of a premature ejaculation moment. Like I felt like I had it, but sometimes you just pull too hard. But yeah. Fredericton. I wanted to shout out all these places. Pickeroons, Officer Square, Garrison Night Market. Oh, that's right, Garrison Night Market. I think I accidentally said Garrison something else, which I really get mad at myself when I make mistakes on stage, even if people don't notice. I just want things to be perfect. Government House, Science East, Beaverbrook Art Gallery, Odell Park, Fredericton Boys Farmers Market, Marcel Lubon, and 12 Neighbours. That's the point. Mayor Al Smith, you were there. I hope you enjoyed the show, mate. Lady Ashburn and Pickles, Harvest Jazz and Blues, Chess Please Cafe, 11th Mile, Brendan and David Sanson, Willie O'Ree, John LaRue, Andrew McLean's Backyard History, 2 of the oldest cathedrals and 2 of the best universities in Canada, the new Fredericton Playhouse, where FYI doctors used to be, opposite the dodgy Tim Hortons. I wanted to cover all of that. And I also wanted to get to, Greg had tipped me off about, there was a little controversy with the Daily Gleaner, voting for best restaurant thing. And I believe there was a bit of a beef between Street Greek North and Rocket Burger. Didn't get to that. Also could have been one of those things that could have been political minefield. So many magical things happened during the show. A phone went off. I got to go into the audience. I loved it, and I never normally come away. But again, thank you to everyone who's reached out. Anyway, I'll move on. I'm not going to keep dwelling on it. Drove back after the show, watched the next episode of The Lowdown. We've been watching The Pit on TV. Did you watch Noah Wiley won the Emmy, Golden Globe, one of those awards for it. It's weird because you first watch it and go, oh, it's Noah Wiley back in an ER. How come this isn't a spin-off? And then I just read that Michael Crichton, who created ER's widow, is actually suing the creators of The Pit, because The Pit, which has the star of ER and the writer of ER and the director of ER, only became a thing after the actual ER spin-off fell apart. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, it is actually ER, the spin-off, but they just changed the name of the character. So poor old Michael Crichton's widow, who I'm sure is definitely struggling for funds. being the beneficiary of all Jurassic Park money. Anyway, everyone's deserved what they deserve. Oh, I didn't even get to do jokes about the 2020, the North Star, Rockin' Rodeo, Sweetwaters. Anyway, all of this is to say, answers on a postcard. Should I do another show at the Fredericton Playhouse next year? Okay, let's whiz through the other things that I have watched. On my travels, I've been listening to the new book by Mark Billingham. Mark Billingham is a stand-up comedian who became a crime novelist and became one of Britain's best crime novelists, if not one of the best in the world. his new Tom Thorne book. Tom Thorne is his main character, who is kind of a brilliantly, I guess, jaded, but he's just a normal bloke cop. That hilariously and beautifully, many of the characters' surnames have comedians' names. Holland, D.I. Holland is, of course, Dominic Holland, who was famously Dominic Holland, the comedian. Of course, now he's been somewhat, should we say, eclipsed by his son, Tom Holland. I remember being in a dressing room at the Glee Club when Dominic Holland was saying, "Oh, my son's just been cast in a movie with Nicole Kidman, which I believe was the what's that thing called? Tsunami movie, The Impossible, is that what it's called?" And then, of course, he became Spider-Man. And then, actually, in this book, there is a joke referencing Tom Holland. Very, very clever. Brigstock, D.I. Brigstock is, of course, Marcus Brigstock. There is a sleazy hotel manager in one of the books whose surname is Mullinger. Anyway, this I love all Mark Billingham books, and obviously, this isn't a criticism. Some are obviously better than others. Some installments you go, that was a good installment of a Tom Thorne book. If you like Mark Billingham's work and Tom Thorne books, this new book, What the Night Brings, is one of the best Tom Thorne books, with some of the most shocking moments and revelations and twists, I would say, since the early days of Sleepy Cat. Anyway, we get on that. Okay, other shows I've watched. Obviously, I've been watching The Morning Show, The Pit. So The Pit, there's an episode of The Pit where a mass shooting occurs and all the victims are brought into the ER. All I can say is you just watch this and go, still, I know we've been saying and thinking this for years. It doesn't matter whether through Columbine, through Sandy Hook, and how and why are there people in the world that want everyone in America to have a automatic submachine gun that can kill 1 million people a second? This is not what your forefathers had in mind when they said the right to bear arms. They didn't mean a thing that someone can hold at a concert and kill thousands of children in seconds. Wasn't what they had in mind. I feel like all these pro-gun nut, and I thought that it's weird. I was saying this last week, how it's not about left or right, and it's about it's about the billionaires and the people that control and blah blah blah. And this is Bill Burr's whole thing. And now, having seen Bill Burr sell his soul to the Saudis, and support a regime that kills people for saying the wrong thing, and we will get to this Riyadh Comedy Festival thing. I have to say, I take back what I've been saying. Saying it's not left and right, I mean, to an extent it is if you're talking about extremes. I try and sit on the fence and be non-political on here, but I can't pretend that I think that anyone that is in favour of no checks on automatic weapons, and everyone should be able to just walk in a shop and buy one, and every house, and the problem, and these people that think that the solution is to arm children or arm teachers. I mean, just all of it. I can't pretend that it's not helpful to call them nut jobs. What the hell else am I supposed to? Why are we being told to hold back? Isn't the thing that made Trump successful the fact that he spoke his mind? And I feel like the problem that those of us that care about humanity and love people and want people to have what they need in the world, whatever that entails, whether it means escaping persecution or being able to just live a normal life, just everyone to have what they need. The fact that we've been biting our tongues for so long could be part of the problem. Not to get political. Okay, so watched Lewis Capaldi, the Netflix documentary at the weekend. How I'm Feeling Now. Lewis Capaldi, of course, is one of the best-selling British artists of all time. I believe he had the best-selling number one album in 2019 and 2020. Fascinating person, character, a very, very normal guy who just happened to write beautiful, beautiful songs. Well worth watching, seeing how someone reconciles fame with normality. Saturday, woke up, morning after a big show. Would have been very easy to kind of just lie around. I got a text from my friend Chris saying, "Hey, there's the big CrossFit opening, grand opening of the new location. Do you want to come? 9:30 a.m. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Went down, had a epic CrossFit workout, and and saw their beautiful new location, which is out just outside Quispam Sis. Well worth checking out. Very fun. Perfect thing to do. Like, it's very easy after a big show just to loll about, get up, get out. Then that afternoon, I think we walked the dog. Did some workouts with the kids in the garden. Biked to Garden Grove. Went to the beach, and I probably fell asleep super early. Saturday morning, again, felt inspired. Actually went to St. Paul's in the morning and heard the most inspiring sermon by Reverend Ginny Wilmhoff, who talked about, there's a word I use a lot in my my shows, humility. And Reverend Wilmhoff came up with this homily about the notion of humility and what it means to, again, bring up children in a world where the loudest voice, going back to what I was saying about the whole Trump thing. Anyway, it was so fascinating and thought-provoking, and if you're interested, I'm sure I can get a copy of it for you to read, because humility is this when did that stop being a wonderful trait to have, and when did the world start celebrating the behavior of the loudest and the most monstrous? And that does. And then I actually had a nice phone call with my mum and dad. Called them. My dad's been going through something health-wise, something serious health-wise. I know lots of us are dealing with, and so it was nice to see them. And again, when you live in different countries, to your loved ones, FaceTime is a savior. Went to see one battle after another, the Paul Thomas Anderson movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, getting lots of Oscar buzz, almost 3 hours. Some people, it's funny, this whole, whenever a new movie comes out, and then there's like the far right start kicking off about these movies being woke. It's like, it's woke! I don't like it because it's woke! And by woke, they basically mean there's characters of differing races in it, or there might be a character that happens to be gay or trans, and they take great offense at it. It's just the weirdest thing. How they just it's woke. There's a black person in it. It's woke, therefore it's shit. One battle after another. So Paul Thomas Anderson, of course, famously, I think his first movie was Hard Eight. His second movie was, he made like Boogie Nights, which is one of the, obviously, I would say one of the top 10 greatest movies of all time. One of my favorites up there with Goodfellas and Grease 2. And he was like 27 or something when he made Boogie Nights, and then he made Magnolia, which again I love. And I've all of his movies. I remember going to see Boogie Nights on a date with the first love of my life, who you will read a lot about in my next book. I remember seeing Magnolia for the first time by myself. I remember going to see The Master with Philip Seymour Hoffman, which I actually couldn't get into. I think that was my first week. I was in Birmingham. It was my first weekend as a paid comedian. A club was a big monumental thing. Like, I had a barnstorming gig the night before. Then went to the cinema, and it was like, this is it. I'm really a comedian. And I felt great. Although I hated the movie, and I died on my ass that night and basically got booed off. Anyway, so it isn't to say that I'm kind of like, there's movies I really didn't. People love The Mask, so I didn't get into it. Weirdly and embarrassingly, I've never even seen There Will Be Blood, which I know I should rectify that. One battle after another. At the time, I was thinking this is a bit long, or this is a bit. It hasn't left my mind. It's very relevant now. It is interesting. The one thing I will give the right who have criticized it is interesting. Like, in it is essentially revolutionaries against far right-wing white supremacists. The movie is obviously on the side of the revolutionaries who are committing acts of violence. Do we condone that? Is the movie condoning it? Does it even matter if it's condoning it? Always questions need to be asked, which again is a question I ask about The Long Walk, which is another movie, which again, people will say it's woke, it's woke just because it has two lead characters who one is black, one is white, who have become very close. And I will say, absolutely beautiful performances by the two leads. Actually, British actor David Johnson, who plays Pete, was in a wonderful movie set in South London called Rye Lane. And Cooper Hoffman plays Ray Garrity, and their friendship is the film's just heart. And both actors are just so charming and natural. and so it's kind of got a Stand By Me vibe. Although then, of course, it's weird because it's another Stephen King death game dystopia. Which one review I read described it as the grimmest mainstream movie for some time, which is true. It's also quite interesting. There's another Stephen King adaptation coming out soon, which is of course the remake of The Running Man, which is another death game dystopia movie. And the director, by the way, of The Long Walk is the director of The Hunger Games. So they've already made 5 movies about kids getting murdered for murder games, and of course we just had Squid Games. I mean, I must admit, it's not a genre I'm overly fond of. Because it kind of does feel like the world is tragically headed that way. There's lots of things about The Long Walk that don't make sense. Like they're saying this thing's being live streamed, but as they walk through these kind of wastelands, which interestingly it was filmed in Manitoba in Canada. And I believe in the original book it's set in Maine, Stephen King's homeland. There is a line so like I say, David Johnson, the British actor, delivers a line from the book that is possibly one of the best lines Stephen King has ever come up with. This is the sentence: "Just go on dancing with me like this forever, and I'll never tire. We'll scrape our shoe on the stars and hang upside down from the moon." Isn't that lovely? Unfortunately, so the way in which it's like Stand By Me is it's basically young men bonding, walking, bantering, chatting about nothing but everything at the same time. Very, very unfortunately, here's the problem. In the world we live in, who on earth wants to go and sit in a cinema with a bag of popcorn and watch? Because the plot is 49 kids, they walk, 50 kids walk, sorry, and one is the winner. And if you go under a certain speed, you get shot in the head. And of course, being 2025 now, unlike when we were kids, every time someone gets shot in the head, their brains splatter everywhere. So if your idea of entertainment is watching 49 teenage boys be shot in the head and their brains go everywhere, then this is the movie for you. And they can use that quote on the poster if they want, but to me, it's like I don't really get the why it was made and who it's for. Is the honest answer, even though, yes, it's extremely well made and bloody, bloody, blah. So, I'm jumping around a bit. That was Sunday. Monday, I actually drove out to New River Beach to see my friend Mark Bishop. Many of you will know, and his beautiful wife, Rebecca. He is, of course, the creator of and the brainchild of Race Against the Tide, which is one of Canada's greatest TV show success stories in terms of an export. And it's currently being remade in England, in Scotland, for the BBC with Ian Sterling, a comedian who I think I did one of my last ever gigs with before I moved here. Anyway, I had a nice time with Mark. And then actually went to my friend Nat's spin class that night because it was rock night and phenomenal. Nice doing spin to Coldplay, Kings of Leon and Pearl Jam. Anyway, lots of fun. Then went home and watched Marley and Me, because at some point you have to show your kids Marley with Me, especially if you have a dog, if you know what I mean, because you need to prepare them. Then we watched more Pit. Oh, that's right, in the Pit. This is what I was trying to get to earlier about mass shootings. Every single supporter and lover and worshipper of everyone owning an automatic weapon should be, in my opinion, forced to go and sit in an ER and see what the damage these things do. That's it. That was my not very enlightening point. Yeah, like I say, and yesterday I had a wonderful meeting with my friend Rob Balston from Trainwreck Comedy about our upcoming shows in BC: Kamloops, Summerland, Lake Country, and somewhere else. Oliver, BC. This Friday I'm flying to Calgary for 2 shows. But I've been asking you all for help with this, actually, and I can't remember if I've already asked this. Have I asked you? Can anyone that knows anyone in or around Cochrane, Alberta, or even lives in Calgary but can help me with advice on Cochrane? I need your advice and help to obviously come up with new jokes for then. Okay, I have 3 minutes left in theory. What have I not covered? Okay, I've done Anna Green Gables, done that. Okay, I'm going to whiz through my... Okay, let's go straight to a letter I had from one of my dearest friends, supporters, listeners, and just all around. So one thing I forgot to mention, the genius of the show, of what Shelley Key did at the Kingston Peninsula last week, was I get there to the venue and they've got beautiful lights up everywhere and the chairs are set up majestic and they've got a bar at the back. Pardon me, it's all absolutely brilliant. Genius. I'm like, wow. She's like, is that stage high enough? I'm like, yes, that stage looks great. And Shelley responds, great. That's Glenn's dock. That's right. Someone dragged their dock in out of the water to be my stage. You know you're doing a Maritimes gig when someone goes, okay, we need a stage. What do we do? Drag Glenn's dock in. And then Shelley was worried that it might be a bit uneven, so she brought her rug from home. So my stage was Glenn's dock with Shelley's rug. That does sound. If you say that Glenn's dock and Shelley's rug too quickly, it could sound like pornographic. Okay, I'm going to get to the final two things, which are an important letter that we received. Okay, Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in jail. You heard that, in a corruption case. Apparently, he accepted millions in campaign cash from Libya, which apparently isn't allowed. Isn't Trump doing exactly this, taking bribes left, right, and centre? Funny how Trump stood up in front of the United Nations last week saying that immigration is the number one problem that every single country is facing, and that everyone needs to stop immigration because it's just isn't that kind of racism the weirdest thing where it's just like the problem in your country is people having moved there, forgetting the fact that his wife obviously wasn't born in America, the fact that he is selling gold visas for $1 million. So everyone, the problem in every country is someone crossing a border to live and work in a different place, unless they're a millionaire and they can bribe me. That's basically what he's saying. See, Conor McGregor is asking for $100 million to fight in the UFC White House event, and he wants 100 of these $1 million visas. He'll probably get it. So yeah, the Sarkozy thing, I'm sure it's legit, but it does feel like political, because I thought that everyone took that money, and unfortunately, with the screwed up system that we've created, I thought it was okay. Okay, I have a wonderful letter which I will I'm going to get to in more detail next week. Very quickly, one of the questions was related to one of the greatest kayaking experiences I often talk about, which is kayaking over to Long Island. And the question was, is there a way to do it for those less mobile? And the answer is yes, because I've done this with a friend of mine who has a damaged Achilles. The way to get to kayak to Long Island is to go to East Riverside Park, because you can pull up there and you can get to the beach. I believe it is all on flat. And so once you get to the beach, you can kayak over to Long Island. I am here to help. Okay. A point. This is. I'm going to read out some of my some of this lovely letter. On a recent episode, you wondered whether there were other types of privilege in addition to white privilege. There are. There's male privilege, cis privilege, heterosexual privilege, able or able-bodied privilege, Western privilege, and I'm sure many more. Very, very wise words. Thank you to my dear, beautiful, wonderful friend for pointing this out. On another, and this is a very, very good point that they pulled me up on here. So I just wanted to highlight it before we close off, and I'll have to get back to everything else next week. In another episode, you were quite reasonably lamenting on the lack of support Canadian comedians had both nationally and provincially compared to the support that other cultural producers receive. I agree, it's bullshit. Humor offers a window into our culture while also shaping culture itself. It goes out into the world offering us a unique but wholly relatable way of seeing people, places, and things, and it's done in a way that when it works really well, we leave happier and lighter and occasionally better informed. That's magic. Beautiful words, thank you. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that professional comedians are the only artists who support themselves. Yes, of course, other artists have grants available for researching and producing work, but in general, funding is only part of the story. And the thing is, when artists apply for grants, every board assessing who to award the grants to is working within a budget, so that even for those who are awarded funding, there is no guarantee they will receive the full amount they applied for. It depends on how many artists are selected and how much money there is to go around. One artist may get the funding they were asking for, while others may receive only a part of what they applied for. Or at least that's been my experience. Every professional artist I have ever known has also had to have a second career, teaching being the bigger one, but others get by working a number of part-time jobs. For those able to focus on their art full-time, they often have the support of family or spouses, or they live in deep poverty. Oh, and of course, some writers receive advances from their publishers, but I suspect that's the exception to the rule. I haven't been involved in the arts in quite a while, but national and provincial statistics still seem to bear this reality out. Thank you for picking me up on that point, and I must emphasize, you are 100% right, dear friend. I was 100%. I hope and I think but I was being facetious somewhat in my assertion that I made the point basically a few episodes back, for those of you that maybe don't know what I'm referring to, where how comedians don't get any financial, no grants whatsoever because it's not considered an art form. And as you rightly say, that's wrong. I kind of was jokingly making the point that you could argue that comedians are the only ones that actually are professional artists because they have to fund themselves 100% and other art forms don't. I was definitely being facetious there, and I do apologize. And I know sometimes when I'm making a point about something, it possibly comes across wrong. So I do apologize. I, of course, absolutely do not think the comedians are the only professional artists, because they're the only ones funding themselves wholly. So, but if I did say it in that respect, I 100% retract it and apologize. There's so many other things to cover, and we're going to come into this next week. So I want to ask your opinions on this, and then I will cover it in detail. And I keep teasing this, and I'm sorry I'm not going to get to it fully. But there's a comedy festival going on right now, the Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia, where the Saudi royal family, as Mark Moran pointed out, from a comedy festival, from the folks who brought you 9/11 and who chopped up the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, comedians such as Louis C.K., Jimmy Carr, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, the champions of free speech, the one who say you can't say anything anymore just so that they can make offensive jokes about trans people and less able-bodied people and indeed everyone. These vocal champions of free speech are happily taking money from the Saudi royal family who are not fans of free speech, and not only are they not fans of free speech, they chop up people who do exercise their free speech. And so my question for you is what is your opinion on this level of hypocrisy? Now, there's certain people you expect it of. I think a lot of people are most disappointed by Bill Burr doing it. People kind of expect it possibly of Sebastian Maniscalco and Jimmy Carr. But the level of hypocrisy a week on from Jimmy Kimmel, where we've all celebrated our free speech and our right to free speech, these comedians going to this place where free speech is not allowed. They've also agreed to contracts that say they can't do jokes about certain things. And I mean, Tim Dillon, the comedian, famously said that he was paid I think he was being offered $400,000 or $350,000 to do it. He said, I'm being paid to look the other way. I'm doing it for the money. He then made a joke about how they kill their slaves, and he was promptly fired from the festival. Jim Jeffries also made reference to the fact that he doesn't Jim Jeffries talked about in the podcast. He too has been dropped from the lineup. Are these comedians all going to get there and get beheaded for saying the wrong thing? Bill Burr, who is constantly saying that the billionaires are the problem with everything, is taking the money and doing it. So before I get to what I think about all of this, send me your thoughts. Send me your opinions. Thoughts on comedians taking money to support a regime. Now, just to be clear, Jim Jeffries tried to justify it by saying, well, America's done bad things. Yes, but this is you all taking money directly from the perpetrators of the badness. It would be like, these comedians all taking money. Look at the grief that Tony Hinchcliffe got for doing the Trump event, and these events are solely designed. Of course, these comedians could argue, well, how come sports, all the boxers and the darts players and the snooker players that are doing events in Riyadh, how come they're not being picked? Well, because they're not the ones arguing free speech and saying. So anyway, let me know what you think. Maybe you think it's absolutely fine. Maybe you think it's acceptable that Bill Burr is looking the other way to human rights abuses because he's getting a paycheck of $1 million to do a show, or maybe you feel that he's being a hypocrite. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I will talk about it at length next week. So before I go, I just want to say one more huge thank you to my wonderful friends at St. John Airport. I can't wait to see you all on this Friday when I fly to Calgary. And I just want you all to be reminded of the amazing work of our friends at Pascan Aviation. That's right, this is the ultimate tip for all my fellow Maritimers. Pascan Aviation is back, reconnecting the region with friendly personal service from St. John Airport to Halifax, Montreal and Quebec City. That's right, Monday to Friday you can hop on a Pascan flight and be in Halifax in no time, or head straight to Montreal's YHU Airport, which gets you faster to downtown than Trudeau. That's Trudeau the airport, not Trudeau the guy. He's not driving driving taxis yet. The time could come. Okay, and here's the thing. Every passenger gets one free checked bag up to £50 because nobody wants to pay extra just for their luggage. Even better, thanks to their partnership with Porter, you can book seamless travel on flyporter.com through Halifax and soon, early 2026, through Montreal's brand new Porter terminal. Now is the perfect time to plan ahead, my friends. Come on, Ramblers, get on this. Bish bash bosh, sweet as an art, lovely jubbly. Pascan has great promo prices for Thanksgiving, Halloween and the holiday season, so don't wait. Visit www. I know you don't need to hear the www, but it helps to hear it. So don't wait. Visit www.pascan.com and book early for the best deals. Trust me, your next getaway is just a flight away. Get on this. Thank you very much for listening to Manager's Weekly Ramble. This was supposed to be a shorter one this week, but there was just too much to talk about, and I didn't even cover everything. Let me know what you think about the Riyadh Comedy Festival. Go to pascan.com to get the best possible flights that you could dream of. And I love you all very much. And message me if I can help with anything. My personal email is jamesmullinger@gmail.com. Love you, Ramblers. See you soon.
Mullinger's Weekly Ramble.